Thank you. Thank you. I'm so grateful to see you, all of you, come here and just come to this talk here. Let me just begin on a lighter note. Today at lunch, I was seated with my confreres, Father Charlie and Father Neil Work, and we're just laughing about something. So you say, you man, you're going to give a talk about 1,000 people dying, and the poster that was produced has a big smile of me. So are you trying to kill people, or what is this about? So I'm happy that Father Charlie is here to make sure that I'm not trying to kill anybody. So as you heard, my name is Father Fred Jenga, and I'm a priest of the Congregation of Holy Cross, and I just live and work just at the extreme end of this block of land. So Stonehill, Holy Cross Communities, and then the next is the Holy Cross Family Ministries. The lecture that I prepared for you examines the religious rhetoric of a Ugandan cult that was called the Movement for the Restoration of the Ten Commandments. Has anyone been to Uganda? Yes, yeah. We have a couple people here. Has anyone ever heard about the Movement for the Restoration of the Ten Commandments? So you're going, yes, yeah. She's a Ugandan, so that doesn't count. This movement, as I will be referring to it, led to the death of more than 1,000 people in the year 2000. The government of Uganda commissioned an inquiry into the work of the movement and what led to the death of so many people. However, the findings of the commission were never made public. So the Ugandan public has never really fully known what happened and what led to the death of such a big number of people. The practical justification for this study that I'm kind of like trying to hash out and trying to see, to wrestle with, is that without a proper knowledge of the causes and the operations of such movements, the likelihood of this kind of phenomena happening again are very high. There are other people that are going to be taken advantage of, and eventually they may also end up in such a situation. So that's why we need to study this. And as Africa becomes the global center of Christianity and Islam and other major world religions, it is important that people are well prepared so that they know about what we refer to as extreme religion. Part of my scholarly justification for this study is that there have been other scholarly studies that have been done on this cult. There is one that I know that was done by colleagues at Makerere University, but it was approached from a religious studies perspective. There is another one that was also done, but it was done from the perspective of history. There isn't any study that has been done that approaches the subject from a communication studies approach. So that's why, with my background in communications, I just said I'm going to approach this study from the perspective of communication studies. And from the broad field of communication studies, I'm specifically approaching the subject from the subfield of rhetorical studies. Rhetorical studies study really persuasion in messages, whether it's politics, whether it's religion, and that's the angle that I'm taking. And from the study of rhetorical studies, there is a tiny little subfield called the apocalyptic rhetoric that studies end time type of argumentation, end of the world type of argumentation that we hear a lot. It can be in politics, it can be environmental, apocalyptic, the world is going to end if we don't do this. It can be technological, apocalyptic, the robots are going to take over our world. So there is different subjects that can be approached as far as this tiny little field that I was very blessed to be introduced to by my academic advisor, Professor Barry Brummett. So that's why this is very important for us. Now let me show you here. We have here a number of central questions that I would like you to focus on as we go ahead. The very first question says that why and how are people convinced that the world is soon ending? So please keep this question at the back of your mind. And the second question is, once they have believed whatever you've told them and bought into it, what else can you persuade them to take on? Jump into a fire, do what? What else can they be able to be convinced to take on? And the whole study is really based on an analysis of a book that this organization wrote. I just want the audience also to be reminded that these kinds of movements and groups are not just unique to Africa. They've been everywhere. They are part of the human and the social experiences all over the world. In the US American context, the charismatic Christian minister Jim Jones founded the People's Temple in the 1950s. And he moved the group to California and eventually moved his group down into Guyana and founded Jonestown. And a lot of people died because of the persuasion that he convinced them to commit also mass suicide. In Waco, Texas, we also had David Koreshi with the Branch Davidians down there, an offshoot of the Seventh-day Adventists, who claimed that he was the promised Messiah. And as part of, he encouraged his people, he preached that the world was near. And April 19th, 1993, he engaged in a very bloody battle with the federal law enforcement that were trying to disband this group. And 70 of his followers were also killed in that encounter. Then we also have Marshall Applewhite, who founded the Heaven's Gate in the 1970s. And this group subscribed to beliefs that were a mixture of science fiction and belief in UFOs and also some Bible ideas. And the same group also on March 26, 1996, 38 members killed themselves by eating applesauce, juice, and pudding mixed with some kinds of drugs. They believed that, you remember the whole thing that came up about the Hale-Bopp comet that was coming and heading towards the world? He convinced the people that after that comet is gone, there's going to be a spaceship that is following it. It's going to come down, everybody's going to get onto it, and then everybody's going to be taken to some higher plane existence. So these movements have been around, so don't just look at it as if this is an issue that is connected only to Africa. Allow me to give you just a brief overview of the historical background of this movement before we go into other things that you're going to hear later. You know, presenting these lectures is like building an argument. The movement was founded in 1989 by Credonia Mwerinde and Joseph Chibwetere. So this is Credonia Mwerinde and this is Joseph Chibwetere here. Those were the founders. In Western Uganda, let me just show you, this is the book that they wrote. So this is the map of Africa here. And Uganda is that tiny little red dot. And this is the country itself, and the movement was founded right here. Down here is Rwanda. So this is the Congo, and this is the Sudan. That's Kenya, and this is Tanzania here. So it was founded here. Our capital city is around here. And I come from right there, in the Jinja area. So they founded this organization, this team here, the two of them, and it was founded with the message that a Blessed Mother had appeared to them through apparitions, had appeared in the caves, and delivered to them a message that people had deviated so much from the 10 Commandments That's why there were all kinds of problems that were happening in the country. So they used to meet in the caves in a place called Nyabugoto. And they founded a small prayer group in that place. And eventually, they ended up, Chibwetere and Credonia Mwerinde ended up founding the organization officially. So that's what happened with this. They wrote a book, a very nice book, that is called A Timely Message from Heaven, The End of the Present Times. Let's see. So this is a bigger map of Uganda. They were founded in this Kanungu district here. And then they used to meet in the Nyabugoto caves where the supposedly our Blessed Mother used to happen. And Mary used to give them a lot of messages about the world almost coming to an end if something is not done. Prior to what happened in the year 2000, Uganda as a country had gone through traumatic political and social turmoil. The 1970s saw the ruthless rule of dictator Idi Amin Dada and the almost total collapse of that country. The 1980s of Uganda saw several military takeovers and the start of the 5-year Bush war that brought our current president into power. The 1990s also saw more wars in the country, especially in the north of the country, and also the climax of the HIV/AIDS pandemic in the country, where Uganda was one of the countries that had the highest rates of HIV infections. And we also saw the closing of a lot of companies in the country as the economy was collapsing. And within established institutions like the churches, there was something that sort of like got broken at the center of it. For example, within the Catholic Church, through some of these years, there were a lot of changes that were happening. It was the time of implementing like the suggestions of the proposals of the Second Vatican Council. Nuns threw away their habits at that time. Nobody anymore prayed the rosary. Very few people went to confession. They thought that's the thing of the past. And there were a lot of changes that were happening left and right as far as the context of the country is concerned. So there is one of the followers of this group that said this in the book that I've shown you. He said that we joined the movement as a protest against the Catholic Church. We had good intentions. The church was backsliding. The priests were covered in scandal. And the AIDS scourge was taking its toll on the faithful. The world seemed poised to end. So it is in this context, with all of these elements in place, that the movement was formed and even got registered as a non-profit organization in the country. With the Joseph Kibwetere and the Mwerinde at the very top as the leaders of it, and the goals of the movement were very simple. You teach people to go back to following the 10 Commandments. Go back to following the 10 Commandments. And they were so strict about emphasizing that message that the group even discouraged some people from even talking on some days for fear that they are going to break one of the commandments about speaking ill of somebody else. They fasted a lot. They only ate 2 meals, 1 meal on Fridays and on Mondays. Sex was forbidden. The use of soap was forbidden. They believed that the AIDS epidemic was really a chastisement against the people and how they had lived during, they were living at that time. So the movement declared that the apocalypse would occur on December 31st, 1999. That night, that's when the apocalypse would occur. And the beginning of January 1st, the year 2000, everyone would be in a new world altogether. And preceding that time, 3 days prior to that, that the whole world was going to be covered with darkness, and then at night, on the 31st, everything was going to happen. And they called their church Noah's Ark. It was one that is going to protect them from the world that was already soiled and had a lot of problems. So the man that you saw in the picture, this organization actually attracted a lot of people. There was a priest in the other picture that I showed you of the 3 people. That was Father Dominic Kataribabo. He had got graduate education here in the United States at Loyola Marymount, and was a very popular preacher and a teacher in the country, but was also convinced to join the organization. There were also other priests like Father Joseph Kasapurari, who joined, Father Poi Kazire, also who joined the organization. Well, when the year 2000 was about to approach, there was a frenzied activity in the camp that they had built for themselves. They had a church that built houses, they lived in a commune, they worked together, they grew their own food. But towards that time, there was frenzied activity at the camp. They were selling everything, and they were doing so many things just in preparation for it. The night came and nothing happened. Nothing happened. And when the 1st of January came, everyone was kind of like disillusioned. They were heartbroken. And they were asking questions, what happened? What happened that, you told us that the world is soon ending and we don't know what is going on now. Tell us what is going on. Well, the response to this was simple. The leaders of the group went back to the people and told them that actually our Blessed Mother, the Virgin Mary, had appeared again and rescheduled the date. This time it was going to be on the date that was Mary gave them this time was the 17th of March 2000. So they had like a whole 2 months for them to be able sort of like to prepare themselves. There is a communication scholar who studies also this kind of phenomena, and he offers 4 elements that every apocalyptic movement goes through. The very first stage that any apocalyptic group goes through is what they call the arousal stage. There is a writer who comes up with a message and is so passionate about it, but that message is in search of an audience that can be able to receive it. If he does not find an audience that buys into it, that's the end of that apocalyptic group. It just dies, just goes flat. But if he finds an audience that buys into what he's suggesting, then the movement can be able to go to the next stage. So part of the reasons that for the receptivity sometimes that it happens is sometimes some of these factors here. There is people going through so much in their world that they live in or in their personal lives, and it predisposes them to opening up to all the suggestions or the message that the writer is going to give them. So these kinds of things can affect people and predispose them towards that kind of message. The second stage that happens with those kinds of groups is the confirmation stage. When the writer or the creator of message has received an audience that has bought into the message, they start looking for signs that can be able to confirm the message. So they look for phenomena and things that are happening in society and start imputing meaning to those messages so that the people can be able to say, actually, this is really happening. So they say, do you see that hurricane that is happening? Well, let me tell you something. There is a message into that. Do you see the earthquake that is coming up? Well, that means something. Do you know why we've had, do you see the famine that we have? All of that is like, they look for phenomena that is common to people, that people already see, and start attaching their message to that, as if this is a hidden message that is in there. So people appeal to this. the economic collapse, the civil wars that were happening, the HIV/AIDS pandemic, the changes in the institutions. Like if you see the nuns have already thrown away their religious habits, let me tell you, the end of the world is soon coming right here. The third stage in the evolution of these movements is what we call the commitment stage. The writer or the group of people who created the message force the members to take risks on behalf of the organization. You don't eat, jump into a fire, tie a bomb around you and do something, or kill yourself. There is something that they ask you because they want you to build solidarity and a bond with the organization that is there. Sell your property, jump into a fire, abandon your family, militarily fight the establishment. So these are some of the suggestions as part of the commitment stage that is there. And the third stage, is that the third stage there? The fourth stage that we have here is the disconfirmation stage. This is when people wait for whatever they were being told to happen, and then it doesn't happen. So what happens? This is when the groups unravel and people abandon them, or they start asking questions, or they got something else. But there is a rhetorical strategy that the people use at this stage, is to renegotiate the end. And that's what you saw with the writer saying, you know what, like we've got a phone call from Blessed Mary and kind of like rescheduled this. And if people buy into that message, it's likely that the movement can be able to go on and go on and go on. So that's what happened. So when the 31st, nothing happened, they renegotiated the disconfirmation stage, actually moving people back to the stage before, where they have to do commitment to the organization. So they started again selling their property and doing everything within their means as they waited for that coming. So on March 16th of the year 2000, on the eve of the tragedy, there was again frenzied activity in the camp, in this community in Kanungu. People were selling, they even had a big meal. They killed the cows, they slaughtered the cows, and there was sort of like a last supper. And then they went into this church that they had built, and it was boarded up. So they put a lot of boarding around it. And they said, we're doing this because we want to keep the people from outside from coming in. You are the chosen people, so we want to keep them out. And the Blessed Mother is going to come in this a huge ball of fire, and then is going to lift you up all. So that's what happened. Everybody went in, they closed everything, and at 10 a.m. in the morning, there was a huge explosion in the church that they had built. And people in the neighborhood could see all this huge smoke that were going up, and everything sort of like went quiet. So our newspapers put out all this. So shortly after the explosion, other bodies were found elsewhere, not at that site. In the homes under the floors of some of the leaders of the organization, like that Father Dominic Kataribabo, they found how many bodies in the Rugazi? There were a lot of 6 bodies were exhumed from a toilet, a pit latrine. And when the pathologists tried to look at what had happened, they found out that there were indications of murder through garroting or mutilation and poisonings. More bodies were discovered elsewhere. 155 bodies were found under the floor, 155 under the floor of that other Father Dominic. 153 bodies were found in Rukunjiri district in another house 81 bodies were found in another small town called Rusojura. 55 bodies were found in another house in the capital city of Uganda. In total, 1,000 people died during that time. So the government tried whatever it is, but it never really provided any explanations to the people of why this had happened and how did the people end up in this kind of situation.
Did all those deaths happen on the same day? Or?
No, they discovered that some of these had died a long time ago. So it actually put a complexity to the situation. So there was even murder. It was no longer like just a mass suicide, but murder likely was also involved. So for 21 years on Kanungu, it's just still a mystery, even up to now. This is just a small effort to try to understand what went on during that time. These are the other 4 stages that I shared with you about. There is the arousal, there is the confirmation, there is commitment, and there is also the disconfirmation. This is, I think, what you need to pay attention more to. But equally, the context matters as well. In this next section, I just want to explore rhetorical elements, the movement exploited to make the message appealing. It is usually a combination of factors that conspire to fall in place to make apocalyptic rhetoric really persuasive. It's not just only the language. There are all kinds of things that are going on. All of them fall into place so that you can be able, for people really to be moved and accept the message. There is the power of contextual realities, a telic or linear framing of time for people, that we are here, but we are heading up to some kind of determined destination. There is the power of a grounding text that I'm going to share with you about. And then raters, the ones who come with the message, have to build credibility so that they can be able to be believed. And there are also kinds of rhetorical techniques that they use for their message to be really accepted by people. So here is the first one. As I shared with you, contextual realities count as far as this game is concerned. The AIDS that was happening, the wars that were going on in that country at that time, the changes within the churches kind of like softened the hearts of the people and predisposed them to any message. This is what we call the creation of the element of anomy or the element of chaos or disorder, both in society, but even in the interior lives of people. That is a very combustible situation. When this happens, people start coming up with the questions. They are trying to find answers too. And where is all this chaos coming from? Why do we have AIDS? Why are the wars going on? Why do we have famine? Why is all of this happening? Well, the writer, the creator of the message, comes up and then he does something. They're looking for apocalyptic rhetoric, provides answers that people are looking for. That, okay, so whatever we're seeing, there is actually an underlying message that has existed and it exists there, but we've not been able just to read it. So it helps them, apocalyptic rhetoric helps them to kind of like rediscover order amidst all the chaos that they have been going through. There is a grounding text. The writers who create the messages have to find a revered text, one that is highly respected by the general audience, that they are trying to appeal to, and use it as the jump-off point for them. That could be the Bible. You can be able to use the Gita. If you're speaking to the Indian or the Asian communities, you can be able to use the Quran. Or there are all kinds of texts that people come up with, and they can be able to manipulate and use, like, the authorities from here. This is not about, it's not from me. It's coming from this. So they borrow the prestige of those revered texts and use it to persuade the people So this is a technique that is called authorial borrowing, that you are borrowing the authority and the prestige of these revered texts so that you can be able to use them and you can totally use it to be able to tell a totally unrelated story altogether. But you can say, okay, according to the book of Daniel and the book of Revelation, chapter this and this and this, and you come up with this and you manipulate that for you to be able to tell the story that you desire to use. There is also the building of the writer's credibility. You need to be believed. And how do you be able to do this? You can be able to do this by coming up and telling people that whatever kind of phenomena that you're looking at, there is actually a veiled message underneath this. And after you convince them that the wars and everything, there is a message, all of this. And I'm the only one who has the code, who can be able to decode this message for you. So the people look at the wars and whatever is going on and saying, you know what, there is actually something wrong here. And I think we are open to listening to what you're saying. And then they start kind of like convincing the people that way. They can also be able, in building their credibility, they can also be able to use the power of association. So the group that you saw there framed themselves as part of this Catholic apocalyptic visionary apparition movement that had happened. So they referred to names like Padre Pio and the Tiger and all these names that are so important that people already believed in. And they say, you know, whatever we're telling you is no different from the messages that you've heard elsewhere in the past. So there is the power of association there. And then the next one that we have is they employ a lot of rhetorical techniques. One of them is one that is used a lot in biblical studies, typologies. The use of typologies. Thank you. They look at phenomena that is in a big text, a revered text, and they speak about it, and then slowly they start attributing it to something else different. And then eventually they move it to something that is totally unrelated from the text that they were using. So it keeps going and going and going. Eventually when they're only be able to, they're only telling you their story that is unrelated to the text. So that's, and then there is also the use of transfer. Transfer is, again, using again the authority of one text, and then they can be able to apply it to something else. So in the book that I showed you that they wrote, they begin by telling people that God chose the Israelites, and they were God's people, and then he chose Moses, and then he chose Jesus came and he chose the 12 apostles. And then off they go and they say, you know what? Uganda is God's chosen country. And us, the leaders of the group, we are the 12 apostles of our time. And then it just goes on. It's very difficult to argue with the scripture like that. After they have taken all the prestige and authority of the scripture and slowly they have moved it up to something that is very far away from the beginning. And then they also employ a peculiar use of language, almost similar to the language that you find like in the book of Revelation, also the book of Daniel. Images that are very graphic and a language that you've never heard about, the four horsemen and all of this. And it's them who can be able to actually be able to translate this for you. And people are basically helpless and they cannot be able to do anything about it. They have to rely on them. So as I conclude, I just want to say this. The end time persuasion that is apocalyptic tends to appeal to the fear and also to promise tends to highlight the chaos that is present and also promise hope or a new beginning or redemption that is going to be coming. And as you look at this, These are some of the key elements that tend to mark it. There is always a disempowered audience. People that are kind of like in chaos, on some kind of disorder, and they have questions, but they don't have answers. And in that situation, there is a rise of a credible and a charismatic figure. He may have to work a little bit hard on building his own credibility, but the man or the woman or that committee or the team of people tend to be kind of like a very, very good public speakers as well, or very convincing the way how to articulate what they have. Then in there, you have to throw in a grounding text, an authoritative, revered text that is going to be used as a jump off as you tell the story. And then there is a telic reading or linear reading of time. Guys, we are here, but disaster is going to happen at this particular time. And we need to do something in this time as soon as possible. And then the very last one that you have there is always a promise of redemption, that at the end of this, there is going to be a new start, a better life that is going to come for you. All of these kinds of tricks can also be used in secular contexts as well. For example, in this country right now, there is, I was just thinking about this last night, there is this replacement theory that is being pushed. Have you heard about this? It's like, oh guys, white people are going to be replaced. There is something going on in our world now, that white people are going to be replaced by people of color and immigrants. We need to do something about this. And they can be able to throw in statistics. Like in the year 2050, the population of white people in this kind of country is going to be only 13%. Everyone in this kind of year, the population of Christians is going to be only 11%. And they keep throwing those kinds of statistics as well. So as we do this kind of analysis and look at this kind of phenomena, also pay attention to what is going on elsewhere in our societies. Thank you for listening to me, and God bless.